Hi. Hi, hi. Okay, cool.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, we haven't done this because we skipped last month.
I know. It feels like it's been a long time.
This is lovely. I'm so happy to see your face.
I know. It feels like it's been so long, but I'm excited to be here.
Megan has been in Michigan and then I had surgery. And so we have not been here together for a little bit, but here we are. So for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you do. Megan is my COO at A Lit Up Life. She started with me as my BA and has been my OBM and now my COO. So we have built all of this together and she has lots of insights to offer you in ways that I just can't, right? Because she's behind the scenes and seeing it in a different way. So one of the things that we do is we also have Megan come into my other programs like Millionaire Makers because we want her to be able to support them in a conversation we are always having, especially with clients that are, have bigger teams and are growing, is basically like how to get your team to actually execute on your vision. So we're going to give you a high level overview of that today. We kind of have like 7, I don't know, key points, I guess you could say. Yeah, we have 7 things. So we're not going to dive like super, super deep on any of them. But if you guys are watching, Megan comes on live with me once a month in here. So just let us know and we can go deeper on some of them in future live streams. But overall today we're talking about, Maggie says, Magical Megan is back. She is so
Hi,
magical.
Maggie.
This is what Maggie and I call her. We call her Magical Megan. Well, mostly it's what Maggie calls her, but then
and then everyone else started calling.
Yeah, and then I started copying Maggie. We'll give Maggie all the credit for that one, but it's true. Okay, Megan, tell them about you really quick while I put a cough drop in my mouth.
Yeah, so like Lacey said, I started at A Lit Up Life. I should always know this. We say this every time and I never remember. 4.5 years ago or something like that. And so, yeah, I have been behind the scenes and I just kind of run a lot of the day-to-day operations of everything, keep everything organized and running smoothly, and do kind of like the team management stuff behind the scenes. And so, yeah, I think that, today we're just going to kind of talk through what we do and what it looks like for us, the different, 7 things that we always focus on and make a priority in making sure that not only me, but the whole team is supporting, the big picture, long-term vision of A Lit Up Life and making sure everything runs smoothly.
So good. Hi, Tristan. You guys are here. Say hi and tell us if you have any questions. Hey, Jana. Megan loves a good Q&A, so you just
I sure do.
You just let her know.
I love questions. Bring them.
Okay. So the first thing is deliverables. So what we mean by that is like, we try to give very specific, tangible deliverables to everyone on our team, like myself included. And we can really kind of wrap that in with the second part, I think, too, which is also deadlines. So 1 and 2, deliverables and deadlines. I feel like I'll let Megan speak to this a lot from the behind the scenes, but I feel like from a business owner perspective, this is wildly helpful for me because I know exactly what someone is like delivering. I know by when, and I basically don't have anxiety about it for that reason. I literally was having a conversation with a client last week who was so anxious about some of the stuff her team was doing for her. And I was like, well, when is it due? Like, when are they supposed to be delivering it? And she was like, we haven't agreed upon a date. And I was like, well, that's why you're anxious, because you don't know exactly what it's going to look like and exactly when. And she was like, oh, that's so true. Like, that is where all this tension is coming from. So for us, we try to like never give a task without a date. Even Megan, when she assigns me things, will always put a date. I don't think you've like ever assigned me anything without a date. Even if you say the date is like,
I'll say date is flexible. You can move this, but there's
still
always going to be a date.
Yeah. So for me, that's really helpful, both in terms of like, I know what I need to get done in when, but it's much more helpful also in terms of like, I'm just not anxious about the task so much, because I know what the clarity is in terms of like when they're coming. But I would love to hear that from your perspective a little bit there.
Yeah, I think that it's just like, it clarifies expectations for everyone involved, right? Like if I'm given a task, I know what's expected of me. I know what the deliverable is. I know when it's due by. I have, even if it's flexible, like there is some type of parameter around it to give that expectation. If it's saying to you, like if I'm assigning something to you to review something or whatever it is, like same thing, like, you know what is expected of you, but I also know when I can rely on you to get that thing done so that, you know, X, Y, and Z can happen afterwards. And, you know, like, I think it's just like all around everything kind of, you just know what's going on a little bit more. And I think that it's like, just creates that like container for having more like clear expectations.
Especially because, we have good questions, especially because, I'm so glad you guys are giving, like, you know, Megan loves a Q&A. Like, thank you.
I feel like we just need to say that every time.
Yeah. Like, please give her what she wants. I'm going to read you these questions, but I want to say to that, I think also what happens, especially as your team gets bigger and bigger, so many deadlines depend on each other. Like the date that Lacey gets this due then depends on the date the designer gets this, or graphic designer, that then depends on the date that our social person can do that. And so it's all like a domino effect. And so if those pieces aren't fitting together in terms of dates and deadlines, you're always going to feel scattered. Or you're always going to like be pissed at someone because you're going to be like, we're waiting on our graphic designer to whatever. And it's like, we're not waiting on her. She has this date and deadline. Like, so I think that totally makes a difference. Okay. Let me ask you these.
Yeah.
Brittany says, hi, Brittany. Are there any key questions in the interview process you can ask a VA or team member to make sure they understand your higher vision?
Good question. So I would say that like, I think that part of it is explaining it to them, like telling them like, this is what I see. This is really what I like, where I envision the business going, what my goals are. And then maybe trying to almost like ask them to repeat it back to you in a way. Like, I think that it's kind of like the, like, do you understand something? Like the best way to understand, to know that someone understood it is that they can repeat it back to you. And obviously when you wouldn't just say like, repeat that back to me, but like, maybe even something like,
tell me how you heard that, or tell me how you see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you see yourself, you know, playing a part in that? Or, you know, like, how do you see your role evolving as, you know, we execute that vision or something like that? Like, I think that telling them what the vision is and then kind of asking them how they see themselves in it or how they could contribute to it or something like that, would allow them to not only just kind of repeat back like your vision, but then really like envision themselves in it, which kind of gives you an idea too of how they would fit into that.
I also think it's like a really relevant question to just say, tell me what you love about our company.
100%.
Like any job I've ever been interviewed for has said some version of that. And the onus and responsibility was on me before that to have an answer, to have done enough research. And so I think that's a really relevant question too. Like, tell me what you love about our company. And then here's my vision for our company. Where do you see yourself fitting into that? But don't be afraid to like have an expectation that they've done some level of research. And quite honestly, I think that's a good filter. Like if they don't really have an answer to that, they might not be detail oriented. They might not research things in advance. Like that could be a good filter, right?
100%. And I think it's something too where like, even if they're new to you, they just found out about your business because they found out about, you know, that you were hiring or something, just them showing that they did the research and saying like, you know, I am new to you, but here's why I love what you're doing, or I love your mission, or, you know, something like that just gives you an idea that like they're willing to actually make that connection and actually do their research and understand what the business actually is all about.
Yeah, like if you're on a phone interview with them, they should have at least read the front page of your website. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's like some expectation you can have there, even if they don't give like the full picture.
For sure.
Right. There's some like piece there. Yeah, no. Oh, okay. Love this. Yep. Brittany says makes sense. She was saying, is there a way to ask them without sounding condescending? But you answered that. Janice says Managing Up is a good book. Awesome. That sounds great. Nevika said, no, it's not too early to ask questions, but it disappeared, so I can't read the whole question, but she basically wanted to know, like, how many people do we have at a Lit Up Life? What are their like roles or positions kind of thing?
Okay.
6?
I have to count. So Lacey.
Megan, COO. Lacey, CEO. We got 2.
We have a copywriter. We have a podcast editor. We have a graphic designer. We have a social media VA.
Web designer.
I feel like I'm forgetting someone. I feel so bad. No, I think that might be it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 7.
7, including me, 6 on our team.
Another social media person too. So 8.
Yes.
And we love them all.
We really do. Seriously. Here is something that I'll note about that since we said it though. And again, if you have more questions on this, let us know. Something that we have found really helpful on our team is to have people specialize in specific things. This is advice I give to my clients a lot. Like Megan is certainly like a jack of all trades in her high level management and stuff, but we really try to have like individual expertise. Copywriter, 2 social / VA kind of roles, graphic designer, web designer, all that kind of stuff, right? Podcast editor, because it's, I think when a lot of us are looking to build our business, we're looking for like someone that encompasses so much of that. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really hard to be a great copywriter and podcast editor and, you know, team manager and so do we really have like 7 full-time positions? No, but like each person is playing a part in the bigger vision. It also makes it easier because if any one of those people had to leave, we would just be replacing for that specific skill set versus then trying to find someone that also does podcast editing, also does this, also does that. So it's not that anyone's like replaceable in that sense. Like we love all of our team members so much, but like recognizing that they all may at some point move on, that's a really helpful thing to have in terms of like specificity.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, like it kind of going back to like the deliverables and deadlines and stuff like that. I think that also just helps them really like have super clear expectations of what their like zone is.
Their zone, totally.
Right. Like I just think that, and then they're just able to show up and, you know, execute so much better because they're kind of given the same deliverables or, you know, within the same range over and over, and they just keep getting better and better at that. And I feel like that is another point maybe, but like, I just think that, you know, having those like specialties just helps with those expectations and the, you know, deliverables as well.
Yes, totally. We have another question. You guys are making my day. I know I keep saying this, but seriously. Like, I'm so happy with these questions because I know Megan is so good at these. Okay. Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Jenny says, I'd love to know how you tackle strategy in regards to team involvement versus just implementation. So basically like, how are you involved in the strategy versus the execution, which is a question we get all the time. We're going to bounce around here. One of our points was big vision. So we're going to just talk about that in relation to Jenny's question really quick. I really feel like as the CEO, it is my job to hold the big vision. Like, I feel like when people have an expectation that their OBM or even their COO is going to have that same vision or hold the same vision in that way, like, you're hurting yourself because you're not actually fully taking on that CEO role. You're more like hoping that someone will tell you what to do sometimes. Now, don't get me wrong, Megan does tell me what to do, but in context of the execution of the big vision. So I always see that as my job, but what I see as Megan's job is helping me figure out the most feasible way for a team to bring that to life. So a lot of my questions to Megan are like, hey, I want to do this. What's the easiest way for you guys to do that? Hey, I want to do this. Do you think we should do it this way or this way so that it fits you guys? Hey, I have this idea. What timeline makes sense for a team on that? What month should we do that in? Like, hey, I want to add this strategy to our, like our business right now. Who can do that? What does that look like? And how much do we think that would cost? Stuff like that is very much on Megan in terms of like dailies, operations, who's going to do it? What's the easiest way to get it done? What's the process? The actual, this is where we're going. This is what we're doing. This is my idea, rests on me. It doesn't mean Megan never brings me an idea. She certainly does. But like, I feel like that's my job to hold. And then her job is to hold, how does that all happen? And I think we work super well together because we both know our fucking lanes. Like it would be, and mostly I mean me, I don't really mean Megan. I mean, I know my fucking lane. It would be so easy for me to get all up in that. And I really try to stay over here. And Megan really tries to not ask me to change my vision very often. Like she's not really like, well, that doesn't work for us in these 5 ways. She's more like, let me figure out how we can make that happen. Anyway, Megan, I'll let you take it.
Yeah. Like I think that I have said this before in some context. I can't remember how, but I see you being like end goal oriented, big picture oriented, like the vision of everything, and kind of like you bring the strategy, the vision, the long-term game plan, all of that, and like what we're going to be doing, like what you want to focus on, what you want to do in the business. Totally. And my role is more of the detail oriented. How are we going to actually make that happen?
Right.
And anything, I would say even within that, there's still some conversation with you on it. Like I still bring you things of like, cool, so we could do it this way or this way. Like, what is your preference here or something like that. So there's still like a back and forth. It's not like you're just like, okay, I want to do this thing and then like hands off. Totally. But I think that there really is more of I kind of take the lead in how we're making that happen. And then I just kind of come up with the questions too, that like, here are the things we need to figure out. And we might talk through all those things on a call or something like that. But yeah, I see myself more in like the how, and you're more of the what and the why, right?
I'm laughing so hard at this. This is so funny because so my parents just celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary, and we had them over for brunch yesterday to celebrate. And I was saying to them, like, tell me, like, give me the thing, like tell us, like, what makes a marriage work for 40 years? And we end up having this whole conversation, and Kenny was like, I think what makes our relationship work is that you have a broad vision and I'm really good at the specifics of bringing that to life. And I was like, that's so true. And he was like, but the thing I appreciate is you never care about the specifics of how I do it. And you're really like, you're never criticizing me around that. You're really quick to lean back, but you do cast a broad vision. And then like, I help make that happen. And it's hysterical because you basically just
literally just said the same thing.
So basically find you a COO that is like your partner, and it will be much easier.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so true though. And I think that one thing I've learned, speaking of that, since we just had this whole conversation, one thing I learned in the relationship front of that is like, Kenny's happy to do the execution, to make a lot of the, micro decisions, as long as I'm not coming behind him all the time going, but why did you decide that? Why did you do it this way? Why are we And I think you're very much the same in a sense where like, I'm never coming behind you and being nitpicky. I'm very end outcome driven. And so I think that's just good to remember in terms of like team and implementation. Like, try not to get so mired in the details that you end up like making your team feel like they're hitting a wall every time. Like, try to give them like autonomy there, because I really do think that that's when they're more likely to get it done for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Maggie, that's so awesome. Maggie says, love this. And it's the same with my hubby and me. I have a vision and he executes. I love this. Oh, Maggie, that's so good. Humira says, I like the idea of the Hollywood model where you bring on specialists and point them to a single vision. Ooh, I like that. Can we call it the Hollywood model?
Yeah, I haven't heard that before.
I'm just going to start answering that when people are like, how do you run your team? I'm going to be like, why use the Hollywood? Tell us about that. Is that a thing? I want to use that. Lisa said, on point, if you want them to have your vision, you are expecting them to be you. And if they are you, you will lose them quickly to either burnout or their own success. Keep people in their zone of genius and empower them to own that. Totally. I think it's one of those things where it's like very much like the relationship. You bring magic, someone else brings magic, and it works together. When you're like, you must bring all the magic and I shall sit here and wait. It's hard from either end. Like if Megan was like, it's all on you, tell me every little step and then I'll do it, that wouldn't really work. Just like if I was saying to Megan, well, whatever, like what's the vision? What do you want to do? That wouldn't work. So I think it really is that like coming together there. I love that you work for Maggie and I, and we both said that. That's so funny. Okay, cool. So if you have any more questions, let us know. I love these. Okay, so far we went over deliverables, deadlines,
big vision.
So the last thing, you're so smart, Megan. The last thing I will say on big vision is like, where I see a lot of people go wrong in this is they know their big vision, but they're not consistently articulating it. Be okay with being a broken record on that. Like if every time you talk to your team, you're saying, well, because our big vision is to be this, because our vision is to be this. Like, I feel like I've spent plenty of calls with Megan, just literally brain vomiting at her about like, well, I've been thinking about, you guys have probably read me post about this, but when I had that like epiphany about how a lit up life is a 10-seat bar, I probably spent multiple calls with Megan talking to her about how we're the 10-seat bar. And she lovingly just sat there and went, yeah, that's good. Okay, great. That's beautiful. But that is really helpful because it informs her mapping of stuff. It informs her decisions. It informs how she's doing things in the future. And it really like helps make her job easier. So like, don't be afraid to like keep speaking to that over and over and over. Like, I feel like people almost think like that's boring for the team. They don't want to sit on a call and hear that. And like, boring or not, it is useful, right? Bless Megan's heart. She's like, it's not boring.
I mean, it's really not. I feel like it also like, I will say too that, you know, the more that you can say it, like in ways too of like finding an analogy or finding like something like that just really like sticks too. Like I feel like the 10-seat bar example is just like so good because it is such a specific example where like I immediately get it. I have like an image in my head and I can really understand that vision super easily. And then I can very easily communicate that to the rest of the team as well. And then they can get it right away, you know? And so like, there's really a lot of, it's not like everybody on the team had to be on that one call where Lacey said it the one time. It's something that you're constantly talking about. You're constantly sharing, and it's through me, through the team, through your content in all of these different ways where the whole team is kind of exposed to that over and over. And I think that is something to just keep in mind, whether it's like a specific analogy or a story or, you know, whatever explanation you have, as long as you're, you know, repeating it to your team, but also just making sure that it's something that feels almost like very easy for them to like grasp and kind of hold on to.
I love that that's what you said, because you know I fucking love an analogy. And so sometimes I think that's just me, but I'm like, oh, everyone loves an analogy. Perfect. Okay, good. Jana says consistent reinforcement of the big vision. So good. Yeah, I think it's almost like that's what you're trying to do in your content even, right? Like, what are we trying to do in the Let Up Life's content? Like, we're always reinforcing mindset, strategy, and execution, things like that. And so to be able to enforce that vision for the team, I think is similar. Okay, so that kind of leads us back. Let me just remind you, deliverables, deadlines. And then one thing we really do, and I feel like by we, I mostly mean Megan, but both of us for sure. We are so committed to lots of feedback, like probably to an annoying amount at first. But that has just served us so well over the years. Like, I feel like sometimes people get nervous with team at first where they're like, oh, but I don't want to give too much feedback. I don't want them to feel like they're doing it wrong. I want them to be able to find their group. And we do the complete opposite, basically. We're like, welcome to the team. We're going to hammer you with feedback. I'm kidding. Lovingly. But I think for a couple reasons. One, because we find that it gets them on board with things way quicker. Two, I actually think most people enjoy that more because they are getting that feedback. Like there's nothing worse than like being new at something and like having no idea if you're doing it right. And three, when we front load it, we don't have to do so much of it ongoingly. So even like we had someone do some content repurposing for us recently. And Megan was like, here you go. Like, give as much feedback as you possibly can. So I was super detailed and super picky and like whatever, but it wasn't like, hey, you did all this wrong. It was like, hey, here's all the feedback you could ever imagine on this. What questions do you have? Right? I don't know if you want to speak to that a lot more than.
Yeah, well, and I think it's like one of those things where I feel like sometimes it can feel almost like nitpicky and like, oh, yes, it was just a small thing or it doesn't really matter. And it doesn't necessarily always. Like if they misspelled a word or something typoed or, you know, they skipped a step or something like that, it's not that it necessarily is like a big deal where the business wasn't going to fall apart if that didn't happen. But we always point those things out because I think that it's just important to point things out to people because sometimes they don't always see or learn from it unless they have been told that there was an issue and they are given the opportunity to fix it. And I think that that's what creates a lot of like ownership in the work that you do. I think it creates a lot of confidence in the work that you do. I think it creates a lot of enjoyment when you're able to be given feedback and then able to see where you can improve and continue to learn through that. Because I feel like nobody necessarily expects to just be perfect out of the gate. And if you're like, no, you're doing a great job, no feedback, I feel like that's almost like anxiety producing. It's like, but really? Like, I've got to be doing something weird or wrong or, you know, something, you know.
So this was like such a strong rule I had. So when I worked in the nonprofit world, I had a pretty big team. I think I like at a point almost 40 people on my team. And I had this like rule, and we're not like firing people left and right on our team. So hear me out for a second. But like my rule was nobody is ever going to be fired by me and be surprised. Like, I feel like that is like the most important thing. And transparency on our team is a really important thing. I never want to be in a situation where Megan and I are like, she always spells something wrong. Why can't she just spell something right? Da, 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 da. And this person never knows that. That's so fucked. Like, because then we're going to get fed up with it enough that we're going to blow, right? Or like have one day where we're like, why can't you spell something right? Or whatever. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I didn't even know. Right. So I would rather share that like ongoingly all along and have like total transparency there. And again, not with like the intent of firing people. That was just an example, but like with the intent of like transparency, like nobody is ever going to get a critique from us and find out they were actually fucking it up the whole time. Like that is just such a no for us there.
100%. Well, and I think that like it just also, in my opinion, I think that it creates a lot more trust with the team. If you're willing to have those conversations, like then the praise and good, like positive feedback is like, they can just take you at your word. Cool. I did a good job there. There's not feedback. It's not like, oh, she's just saying that to my face, but really behind the scenes, she's pissed about X, Y, and Z. Like there's just complete transparency there. And so then that just creates kind of more of like, I think, a safe environment and safer and more transparent communication all around where.
And that's true for us too.
Yeah.
Like if I'm ever like frustrated or annoyed or any small thing with anything, I will tell Megan and vice versa. And there are plenty of things that she has probably been annoyed at and vice versa. But like, it's so easy to just address it right then where she's like, hey, you didn't say that was a rush and now it's a rush. Like, we got to be clear on that. Or I'm saying like, hey, I thought I communicated this. Like, to just be able to address every little thing like that in the moment is such a gift. Again, because I'm never like, Megan mad at me though? And Megan's never wondering that. Team's never, there's like so much that's good there. Carly says, I ask my clients to give all the feedback, especially at the beginning of our working relationship. I get to know my clients and their wants and needs so much faster. Totally. I love that, Carly. I even do that with coaching clients. I'm not sure, Carly, if you're a coach or done for you provider, but seriously, like I even say that to my coaching clients. Like in our first call, I'm like, give me all the feedback. You're never going to hurt my feelings. The only way you're going to hurt my feelings is if we get to the end and you didn't, have a good experience. Like give me all the feedback, right? Jana says, as a former HR generalist, that's a dream that you're committed to never firing someone who is surprised, right? Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, next thing is ownership. So I feel like this is a thing that a lot of the more like CEO roles struggle with, which is giving ownership to team of specific tasks. I feel like a lot of people that I know or my clients that are like growing or scaling, like they're still trying to hold all of it and they're just delegating out pieces, but nobody owns pieces in their business. And like that part is really hard. Because I think it makes it so that people aren't as invested, number one, and two, it makes it so you're overwhelmed as fuck because you're holding the top of the puzzle box the whole time. If you can be like, you own social posting in our business, like we'll check up on you for 3 weeks on it. Once you got it, you're good. You own that. Like if you have questions, you come to us. If not, like you make sure that gets done. It's not like, hey, I'd love you to post 3 times this week. And then I'm trying to check and make sure they did. It'd be great if you did these 6 things this week. And then I'm trying to keep up with it. It's like, here's a process. We'll give you feedback for as long as we need to. And then you own that. I'll let you speak to that a lot more, Megan. But for me, I'll say that like, that has been the path to scaling is just giving ownership to stuff, because at a certain point, your business gets big enough that you just absolutely can't even hold all of that in your brain without growing crazy.
Totally. Well, and I think that like it also kind of ties a little bit into what we were talking about earlier with like having people in specialties, having people with recurring tasks. You're always given clear expectations. And a lot of the stuff that we do is rinse and repeat. Like people are doing the same things every week. Of course, there are new things. Of course, like it varies, but there's a lot of repetition and a lot of repetition within the same like parameters of, we're not giving our graphic designer some things over here, but then our, other VA is getting some of these. And it's very much like we have those lanes. And I think that allows people to take ownership of that more because they have that area where they can get it, like they're given the opportunity to like say, cool, this is, my area. And this is what, like just what I'm getting used to and knowing and learning more about. And I can then bring ideas to the team and say like, hey, what if we did this? Cause I saw this was new or, whatever it is. But I think that it just like allows people it allows your team just to feel more invested in that area and they just get to know it more and then they become better and better at it too.
And like another thing too is like, this is going to sound a little bad, but it's true. It cuts down on the communication, and not that we don't want to communicate with our team. We do, like, that's all good. We love them, but I do notice that when I come into some of my clients' businesses, there's so much communication happening all the time, back and forth. that it's just wasting a lot of people's time and energy. And quite honestly, it's wasting the CEO's money, right? If you're like, I could literally not talk to Megan for 3 weeks and I know her stuff would get done in our business, or she could not talk to our copywriter for a month and we know like what she's doing. Doesn't mean we never are like chatting, bouncing things back and forth. Of course we are, but that day-to-day like interconnected connection where everybody's on top of everybody trying to figure things out, it's just not present there, which is so valuable for us in terms of being able to be a well-oiled machine instead of kind of like just getting it by each day and or spending a fuck ton of time to get it by, to manage it, to communicate around it, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Janice says amen to reducing communication, right? Like I feel like we want to like communicate because we want to, or because we had that, versus like we have to in order to get these tasks done, right?
I think it also, like from my perspective, I think that it just helps to discern between what's actually important and we need to communicate this versus like it because otherwise it can just be like a constant distraction, and it can be very difficult to know when is something actually needing my attention right now versus it's constantly getting my attention, and then I can't actually focus on, you know, whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing over here. So I think that just really helps, like limiting the communication can help with that, because then it just, creates more, like allows you to create like priority in the communication because it actually is something that needs to be talked about. Does that make sense?
Totally. We have a rule at A Lit Up Life. We did a live stream on this a while ago, but I feel like people really liked it and it was just part of that. So we should do a whole live stream on just this, but we have a rule, which is like, there are no emergencies. And so that, like lessening the communication, taking ownership, is kind of what lends itself to there are no emergencies, because it's not like, well, you have to get back to me in 1 hour because if you don't, I can't finish this, and it all becomes intense and an emergency. It's like everybody owns their piece and knows what it is. So if we're communicating, like if you take 24 hours to get back to me, that should be okay most of the time. Like there should not be any big emergencies or fires that we're putting out if we've set the lanes up right. Okay, next is outcomes. Yeah, outcomes. So outcomes is sort of similar to what we're talking about in terms of ownership, but I feel like it's slightly different and more important. Like I think each team member needs to know like legitimately what their outcomes are. This is something I like really work on with clients sometimes. Like they'll be like, I'm just making something up here, but they'll be like, oh, I like have a Instagram person that's helping me with Instagram. And I'm like, cool, what are their outcomes? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. They just, you know, do stuff on Instagram. I'm like, is the outcome like engage with X amount of people, make sure you send X amount of messages, make sure we do X amount of outreach. Like outcomes are your best friend in terms of your vision being executed. Like, you know, we even like this probably sounds a little micromanaging, but it's true. And I think it's smart, which is like, we will even say like down to the like amount of time, like spend this much time doing this, spend this much time creating this outcome, do this 6 times, whatever it is. One, because it helps us control costs that way and profit margin is important to us. But 2, it's because everyone knows their outcomes, us and team. So it's not like I'm having a vision of like, oh, you're going to go grow my Instagram in this way. And then I'm like disappointed when it's not happening. No, I'm like, I want you to go reach out to 6 people, comment in 5 places, do this thing, whatever. I don't know. I don't have a person that does that specifically, but you get what I mean, right? Like making sure there is clarity there is so key in terms of like actually feeling like they know that they're doing a good job in hitting the mark and your vision is fully being executed versus like assuming they kind of get the outcome, right?
Yeah. And I think that just like, it can even be as simple as like, I'm going to use another client as an example just because it's easier for me, but like one of our team members does like all of like a bunch of Instagram stories. And we could say like, just do Instagram stories every day. But it's like very specifically promote this program in this way on once a week, promote this program in this way once a week. And so it's very specific of like, you're not just saying promote the program on Instagram. Like you're having very specific deliverables of like outcomes of like how many times, in what ways, what is the, you know, like format going to look like, how much time is that supposed to take, what day, you know, all of those types of things. And then it's just like super clear what those expectations are. And then like the outcome that we want is actually happening on a regular basis, you know?
So even like for us, let's say someone's going to grab, one of our amazing copywriters going to grab this live stream and post from it. We'll say, please pull 3 posts from each live stream kind of thing, versus like, can you repurpose content from my live stream? The fuck does that mean? Does that mean you want 1 long post? Does that mean you want 7? Does that mean you want video clips cut? Does that, like, what does that even mean? But when we're like, hey, can you watch the live stream Megan and I did and repurpose 3 pieces? Totally different. Outcomes feel good on both ends. And it's so simple to take that extra step, but we so often forget. We're like, well, I just want you to repurpose from that live stream, whatever. And then we're like disappointed when it comes. We're like, why is this a 17 paragraph thing? Like, that's not what I wanted at all. And it's like, but did you say what you wanted? Like, outcomes are so key in that. And they're also really key in not spending a shit ton of money redoing stuff over and over. So say we got this and she had written literally 17 paragraphs, summarized the whole live stream in one place, then we'd have to go back and be like, actually, we wanted 3 posts. Can you try to break this down? And so now we're doing tasks twice. We're spending way more time on it. Like, there's just such a spend in terms of like energy and money if the outcome isn't clear, because at least 50% of the time you're going to end up having them redo it or you redo it if the outcome isn't clear. Yeah. Or you're not going to get the result, which is worse, you know? Okay. Last thing, and then I'll read them again, is appreciation. So just like we want to give a lot of feedback, we also want to give a lot of appreciation. I just don't think it's like done a ton for like done for you providers. Like I feel like it's almost like there's an expectation there. Do you know? Right? I don't know if you ever have experienced that, Megan, but that's what it seems to me, where it's like, well, of course they should do that. That's their job. And that's true. But like, of course I should coach if that's my job. But like, I still fucking love it when my clients like thank me and appreciate me and whatever. It makes me want to like do better each time. And so kind of like Megan was saying, like, just like we want to be transparent with the feedback, we want them to know, like, when we give appreciation, it's transparent and authentic. And, you know, I think it doesn't have to be huge, but like the little things matter. Like, can you shoot someone a message? Can you send them flowers? Can you give them a little gift? Can you, you know, just like call them out in public and say they did an amazing job? Like, any of those things go so far. And especially if you're like us and you're giving a ton of feedback, you want to make sure you're counterbalancing that with a ton of appreciation too. So it doesn't feel like every time I hear from Megan and Lacey, I'm just getting feedback. It's like, and then I'm also getting, you know, great positive appreciation and positive feedback too.
Totally. And I think that like, I feel like that goes along with the feedback in a lot of ways too, because I feel like the same way that like pointing something out and getting feedback for someone to get better at something, the same thing happens with appreciation. Oh my God, I love the way that you did that. Cool. I'm going to keep doing that more and more. And I'm going to keep like wanting to show up in that way, you know? And so I think that it's just like pointing out, especially like I would say that the things that stand out to you in general, like they did one thing super well, making sure to give appreciation for those things, but also just in general, if you're like, hey, you've just been really supporting me a lot and I really appreciate you in general, you know, like it can be kind of just a general thing that doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a specific task, but I think both are both are good. And we try to do both as much as we can.
And I think it's just like spending that extra 2 minutes to do that or whatever. It's so easy to get out of the habit of doing it, but I think it makes such a difference. Like, since we used a relationship example earlier, we'll use it again. It's just like, in your relationship, if you spend that extra 2 minutes to appreciate your spouse or your partner or whatever ongoingly, it makes such a difference. Like, when I'm like, oh my God, thank you for taking out the trash. Guess who's taking out the trash every time? Like, it's not like, you know what I mean? Not in like a manipulative way, but in like that's how we respond. I feel the same way, right? Like, when Megan like thanks me for doing something or whatever, I'm like, how do I do that again? You know, like, it's like not rocket science, but it's like just the thing that we especially let go of when we're really busy. And so I think like, in terms of like the execution of your vision, if you hit those markers with them, like, I love how you did that. That was epic. Oh my gosh, thank you for that. Oh my gosh, you nailed my vision there. The picture becomes clear of how to keep that. Like, one of the things that I always say, and I think we also did a live stream on, is like, does your team know how to make you happy? I ask my clients that all the time. Like, if they come to me and they're like annoyed at their team or whatever, I'm like, well, does your team know how to make you happy? And like, a lot of times they'll be like, I don't know. So like, that's a great thing. Like, show them the points at which they've made you really happy, and they will learn how to do that again and again. And all of us want to do a good job for the most part, right? It's not like anybody's like, oh, I want to like fuck shit up most of the time. Like, if, you know, like, they want to make you happy. But you have to like give them a path to do that. And I think that's especially hard in the done for you space, because so many of us run our businesses really differently. So what might make one client happy might not make another client happy. Like, it might make me super happy if Megan just makes a decision on my behalf and I don't have to worry about it. And one of her other clients, if she did that, they might be like, no, why are you making decisions on my behalf? So I think it's especially important to communicate it to like your done for you team members, because they're probably getting different feedback from different people, and they're going to apply that to you unless you tell them otherwise, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Recap. Deliverables, deadlines, lots of feedback, ownership, outcomes, big vision, appreciation. It sounds more complicated than it is when you say 7 steps, but it's basically like, are you painting a picture? Are you giving feedback and ownership around it? And then are you appreciating when that's going really well? So if you guys want us to go deeper on any one of those, let us know, because we're happy to do that in the future. We'll probably also do another one on the nothing is an emergency one, because I've gotten a lot of feedback on that. But otherwise, let us know. Again, Megan loves questions. So even if you're watching the replay, you can drop them for us there, or you can join us next month. Second Monday of the month.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, I always have to say this, but you know I have to. Megan does not have to be here. Megan is full and has no reason to be here. Megan is here because she has been with me for 4.5 years and has like literally been behind the scenes and building this community. And because she like really, really, really cares about all of you in this community so much. So if you're here, if you're watching the replay, if you've listened this far, just tell her you love her and thank her, because we are so, so grateful for her. And I know that you just do this to do this and to support us. And I love you.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye.